some old dude who was also a knight, right? The fact that he's presented that way, you don't think about him being 21, having all his friends over and huffing a big old bag of nitrous. At the time, this had to be pretty novel, but what was going on also in other areas was what they called ether frolics. Ether is also an inhalant that is a very strong anesthetic at higher doses and produces mild euphoria at lower doses. Again, administered out of a bag, passing that around and everybody laughing. Again, sort of that late 1700, early 1800 era. And you can see how each of these drugs would then end up slowly getting more and more understood as potential for medicinal use. Where's this stuff all go back? It looks like the Oracle at Delphi may have been near some petrochemical gases. Right? When you read that literature, it's kind of weird. It may have been somebody who was born on Hermaphrodite who was sort of thrown there out of God knows what kind of strange set of social decisions. He, she would huff all these gases, kind of go into a trance, then say sort of ambiguous shit, and we would all assume it was predicting the future. Right? Oh, if you fight this war, a great country will fall. How much more ambiguous can you get? If you're not careful, something bad may happen. You know that's going to be true. Oh, I see you have a strong need for others to like you. But don't worry, because if you work hard, something good is bound to happen. And that was what an oracle really did. Come out with these kind of Barnum statements and then let people tell stories about them. The fact that it happened during a trance just was sort of icing on the cake. We don't have a ton of literature about these subsequently till we get to Humphrey Davy. Right? And this discovery of laughing gas in 1798, and as you saw, this was just part of a whole series of things that he was doing. I guess if you were upper class and white and British, you got to play this shit all the time, right? The fact that they show it with images of people drinking alcohol is kind of cute. An interesting decision by the BBC, right? But in fact, nitrous is a drug of abuse, okay? It's harder and harder to find some of the accoutrements in order to get it, right? So I make this whipped cream Nutella dessert right now. Like getting the machine to make this dessert was like a giant ordeal on the internet. Like I practically had to, make sure cops weren't coming to my house. Right? But now I have the little nitrous containers, and everybody's like, "Oh my God!" And flashing back to a time when, literally in the '80s, you could go into a head shop and get this little cracking thing and a whole pack of 10 nitrous chargers, as if you were gonna, make whipped cream while you're listening to old CDs or something. It was a very, very different time. So keeping a track on that is different. Earlier on, Hoffman had done work with ether. This is the one chapter where I do kind of have to have you keep the names straight, because these are different people associated with different drugs. So Hoffman and ether, Davy and nitrous. Is there an obvious mnemonic? Is there some way you can remember that? Okay, nitrous oxide and NOD, NOD. Of course, if you do a whole lot of nitrous oxide, you're going to nod out. Right? That might be helpful. Might be an interesting way to remember that. Okay. But each of these is in that same category. Right? I just love the idea of the ether bunny. So is today April 11th? I'm not oriented in date. That was the day that nitrous was discovered, or at least used the first time. So Humphrey Davy sucked down his first bag of ether on April 11th. And then this lecture often occurs right near Easter, so I just thought this would be apt. But I knew that these little kids are all like crashed out looking for eggs. Is particularly appealing to little kids who grew up Jewish. Well, what's the big deal about these? Why were they such targets for abuse? These inhalants, not so much, but the more available ones, the glues and solvents, are particularly problematic. Right? Does anybody build models anymore? Did anyone as a child have an airplane that came in a bunch of pieces? And just wondered. Now that there's like internet, I don't know if people still do that. Right? But that model airplane glue is incredibly toxic and also a source of intoxication. And they actually come now with oil and mustard in there to keep you from puffing them too long, or it'll actually irritate your nasal passages. Right? What happens? Intoxication is relatively rampant. As we talked about with every kind of inhaled drug, it goes right to the lungs, then right to the brain and heart. So you're going to see that much more rapidly. With these kids who huff glue, sad but true, it's also an appetite suppressant at high doses. Right? So you're on the streets in South America, living hard, don't have a ton of food, but you can afford a big bag of glue. You can huff that all day long and keep starvation. It's so sick. I mean, what an awful way to live, right? Easy to carry and conceal. In fact, it is not illegal to own most of these. Cops pull you over and you have a bunch of butane. They're confused, but they can't actually bust you for it. Right? Available pretty much everywhere. Right? There's that big picture in the book of the Scotch Guard dude. Like, Scotch Guard is all over the place. Right? I can go to Lowe's right now and get all the Scotch Guard I want. Nobody will even bat an eye. Cheap and easy to steal. Now this is the creepy part. What are some of the things that are inhaled? Shoe polish. Right? I haven't polished a pair of shoes in a while, and I'm stunned that that stuff's even available. Right? But sure enough, shoe polish is an inhalant. Easy to hold on to, fits in your pocket by design, so of course it's easier for shoplifting.